Alright, so today I was building something around Next. I've previously worked with MERN I've previously worked with MEAN so Angular and React are, I have decent experience in both of them. And today I just started to build something around Next.js because I was working on a side project which demanded me to build a full stack app. So those of you who don't know, first of all, Next is not just a front-end tech stack. It can have the functionalities of the backend also, working directly with the database. It's phenomenal. Okay, so when I was learning this, I got to know that there are multiple parts of Next which cover almost each and every shortcoming which React has. Obviously, it can never replace React because it is built on React. In the next 10 minutes or so, we will be discussing around the details of Next, what exactly is Next, what's the difference between Next and React. So I would highly recommend that even if you don't know about React, just stick to this video so you will be getting to know that whether to start with Next first or React first. Okay. So if you are the one who just wanted to start with it, my straight answer would be if you're a beginner and just want to build websites or apps, go directly jump into Next.js. It would be really easy for you to build apps around Next. We have wonderful UI library called ShadCN. We have community around Next also. But if you're targeting some decent companies, placements, or internships, go for React and Angular because these are some, legacy softwares, legacy code bases which are working in the industry since, I guess, now a decade or so. Uh, so yeah, we were discussing about Next in the coming days, coming minutes, sorry. Okay, so first of all, the features and all we will be coming onto it. If you want to learn Next, come to their page. You have something called as learn-next.js, and you have a wonderful pathway ahead, learning pathway ahead to go. You can learn only through documentation. No need to go through any video. Documentation is sufficient. Okay, so one of the best documentations I've ever got to read through is Next. Okay, so I would just explain you some of the stuff. So I've planned out some few points to discuss with you all guys. So first of all, the learning curve for Next as compared to React is very easy. There are some concepts like hooks and all those which if you know previously from React, it would be a cakewalk for you to start with Next. Okay, so not a big deal there. But you can learn on the go through documentation. Documentation has all the points explained there. But if you want to start with Next in a way that you want to build some really good applications, just having basic knowledge of React and JavaScript or TypeScript would do the necessary. Okay, coming to the differences now. So I guess I've talked about what you should prefer if you're a beginner and what your end target is, and according to that you can choose a tech stack. So now coming to the technicalities of what Next.js offers to you as compared to React.js. So first of all, Next.js is a full stack tech stack, I would say. React is a library. Okay, so React gives you few APIs to work with the DOM. It works in the client side. So what a typical website looks like or typical web app looks like is React sitting in the front end. We have a Express API, or it can be Flask, Spring Boot, anything. This can be React or Angular, and then we have a database. So the business logic sits here. React queries the client. So this is the client side. Okay, so in the coming minutes I'm talking about client and server a lot. So this is the client side, this is the server side. Server side is basically the where the business logic sits, and this is abstract to the client. Okay, client is whatever you can see. So what happens whenever we deploy a React app to production or on the server, a React bundle file either. So again, first of all, before starting, I would just start with these three terms. Okay, so what is SSR, SSG, and CSR? So there is something called as server side rendering, static side generation, and client side rendering. Okay, so what happens in server side rendering is that in the backend itself, so on a very high level design, we have two parts. We have the front end and we have the back end. Okay, so this is the front end and this is the back end part. So the front end queries back end gets the data, whatever it can be webhooks, it can be sockets, it can be anything. Okay, so more or less it works like front end queries the back end gives the data back to the front end, and the front end then populates the page. When you try to load a page, there is some loading icon in the start, then we populate the page. So this happens more or less when we have a client side rendering or a CSR app. So CSR is nothing but the client side rendering application wherein the JavaScript code, the HTML, the CSS is first sent to the client in a bundled manner or whatever the stuff is. Okay, and then we have some APIs or some API calls in the front end, which again query the data from CSR to the backend part, and then the backend uh, gets back the data to CSR, and then we have a populated page. This is how the entire client side stuff works. Okay, so what is the biggest problem in CSR? Okay, so what is the problem in CSR which Next.js solve is something related to SEO. Okay, so if you don't know what is SEO, it is search engine optimization, long form, but coming to on a very generic basis or very layman language, whenever you put anything, okay, let's say now I put how to learn next. Okay, you get a set of websites here, right? So these are called the rankings. So how these rankings are built, there are some web crawlers from Google, from multiple the search engines which are working throughout the net. They crawl or they go through each of the websites and they rank them according to the keywords, the metadata they are having. And if we have a CSR site, the CSR sites only has a bundle, right? The data is not populated there when the site is not loaded. Whenever a browser tries to hit the server and get the data, it gets a bundle JS file, a bundle HTML file, which is completely blank, inside which we don't have any data. So the crawlers are not able to get through that what exactly this website has to give us. So in case of CSR, the SEO score is very, very poor. I'm not talking about poor, it's very, very poor. Okay, because we don't have data, so pretty much the crawlers can't give you the rankings, right? So what Next.js has to do is, okay, so Next.js can do pretty much everything. It has static side generation, it has client side rendering, it has server side rendering. So what exactly is server side rendering? That the entire page is basically clubbed. So Next basically clubs this part as a whole. Okay, so it has the front end and back end in a single instance. The entire page is ready now. Okay, so every data point is put inside, populated completely, and the page is then sent to the front end part. So the front end or the client need not do additional API call to the backend to get the data. The entire page gets ready in the server and then is sent back to the client. So now the SEO rankings increases drastically. So the performance issues are really solved here, wherein we get, so because in the end whatever the users are able to see in the Google or on the web is what would generate you revenue, right? So SEO is very important for getting traction of the users to the website. So especially e-commerce websites, blogs websites, content websites, these websites do need server side rendering for getting really good SEOs. This is the first thing which Next serves, and till now I guess it's very clear that in the same Next in the same Next app you can have both the front end and the back end. Okay, so both of them are there in the front end and the back end in the same app. So we have different folders with something called as routes. So there is an entire app router setting there. You're not going to technicalities of it. Once you start learning about Next, yeah, you will feel that it's phenomenal software built by Version. There are some cons to it also. So again, now coming to the next point, are the components available? So if you don't know about ShadCN, I personally feel that right now, at least whatever I know in the community, this is one of the best component libraries sitting out there. Okay, so you get pretty much everything here. You can have themes, you have colors, you have blocks, you have everything which you want to build a scalable end-to-end workflow, that too in a single folder. Okay, so then we have something called as NextAuth, which works on top of Next.js. Again, we can have Google, we can have Facebook integration, Apple mail server. So obviously in the React also we can have this, but time to market reduced by Next.js phenomenally. Like if you develop a React app in maybe 10 days, it would take hardly 5 days for you to complete the same Next app, because Vercel has made it so easy for the early stage startups to move into the market. They have all their CI/CD pipelines. The deployment phase is completely different. Let's not go there. But if the main concern of your startup, if your company, if your project is to get to the market real quick, get real quick traction from the user, Next is the only solution for you, I would say. We have talked about SSR. What SSG is, static site generation, is basically when you run npm run build, you get a build file, then that you deploy on a static CDNs. Maybe we can deploy it on a CDN, or we can deploy it on some static file query engines. And CSR is also on similar lines, wherein we send the JS in the front end, and then the client is querying to the back end. Next comes the routing part. Okay, so if you have you worked with React on a very basic means also, so routing is something which needs very much higher level of configuration in React. So in React, you need to install routing external libraries. You have Redux, you have state management tools, and all those things. So for that, in React, you need external dependencies. React doesn't have these kind of stuff wherein you can route that very easily. But Next.js has something called as app routers. We have something called as file routers. So these changed with updates. They change with the coming updates day by day. What app router is different from file routings. So basically, you have some nested files into which you need not even write which route you have to follow. The file structure itself is the route which the app would follow. Okay. So this is very, very easy. You just change the name of the file and the entire feature of that file changes. So if it's a front end file, you have to write route.js. If it's a backend file, you have to write something like page.jsx. So it's very easy. With few clicks, you can change the entire functionality of your app. And that's very fast. I'm telling you, if time to market is the only concern which you have, Next.js is the solution you go forward to. But so these are very basic pros of it. There are multiple of them. Once you start learning Next.js, go through the documentation, you would get to learn how these things work. There's routing, data fetching. So rendering is again one of the best things if you want to read through static. And there's some get static props, get static paths if you are using SSR, CSR. We have caching, but again, there are some cons to it. What is the biggest con? So Vercel is the biggest con to Next, I would personally say. Why? Because these guys are doing so obviously. So this is a technology built by Vercel. Vercel is a company which is building Next.js. So what they're trying is to monetize this particular tech stack. That is, they are trying to have, so the Vercel is really good platform. They're giving you CI/CD pipelines. They're giving you the entire deployment flow. They're giving you the servers. They're giving you the pace which we can go to the market. But again, they are trying to monetize each and every stuff of it. How? I would now say, so first of all, the pricing of Vercel is quite high as compared to servers like AWS or GCP. But with this also, Vercel has additional cons. So I talked about something called as caching, right? So caching is where a lot of technical intricacies come into picture. How you evict cache, what are the eviction policies which you have, when to use cache, when to not use cache. So in the coming update, in the recent update, I'm not recall the exact number, but in the latest update, what they've did is this caching is now working as a default feature, or the behavior is quite rigid in this particular update. They're trying to basically, catch hold of all the developers who want to use or exploit Next.js to their best use cases. But what they're doing is, if you are not coming onto our platform Vercel, then caching would not behave according to you. But if you are willing to pay and then move on Vercel and then do some stuff, then you get the absolute dominance over how you are managing cache. So cache management, so this is only one part of how these guys are trying to change the entire way Next works. So again, because of this stuff, Next might lose the popularity. But again, Next is a wonderful framework if you want to learn. At least for a beginner level, you can directly dive and make some really good stuff out of that. So I guess we've discussed some pros, some cons of it on a very basic level. Let me know if you want to have some more discussion around it. I can talk about it and so. But keeping it very brief, I guess that's what from my side from today. Let's meet in the next video.